Hi, welcome to another segment of the Life Happens video series. I'm Scott Simmons, Senior Director in the Office of Professional Staff Affairs. What I'd like to chat with you a little bit about today is the important step of the transition from your training into the real world, into that first real professional job opportunity. To introduce what my background, where we are, the Office of Physician Recruitment is responsible for enterprise-wide physician and advanced practice provider recruitment for all of Ohio, all of enterprise-wide, meaning Cleveland Clinic, Florida, Cleveland Clinic, Abu Dhabi will be responsible for London, as well as the Lou Ruvo Center in Las Vegas. Importantly, though, for you, I think it's important to note that the Office of Physician Recruitment has a very high-functioning and engaged resident and fellow career transitions program. Many of you have probably taken advantage of the services available through our office already. If you haven't, I'm going to touch on a number of those issues today and leave you with quite a bit of contact follow-up information to engage you and let you know how you can engage our team in your job search process. So you are in an exciting time right now. You've been working very hard. Many of you have been at Cleveland Clinic for a long time, and now you're interested in what's next, how do I get to that next stage. I want to talk a little bit about these market trends of where physician recruitment is going. It's a market now that is in your favor as someone transitioning out of the training program at Cleveland Clinic. There's a high retirement rate of senior level physicians nationwide. We're seeing more and more shifting of work-life balance so that what we're looking at are more part-time employed physicians as well as individuals who are looking to scale back their practices at the time you're going to be entering the market. So it bodes well for you in terms of opportunities. The challenge is going to be not are there opportunities out there for me, but how do I take advantage and find the right opportunities, and then how do I maximize my efforts in going out there and getting that kind of an opportunity. It's not an easy thing to do. You're very busy, and many of you have not even started to think about that process yet, and to some of you it can be kind of overwhelming about how do I even start. So I want to kind of go through a lot of those different things with you. The most important most important message that I'd like to get across is to start to consider the timing of your job search effort. And when I talk about timing, you know, we all know the cycle that most of you run on, the July through June training cycle. You really want to start to look back almost 18 months from the time that you're going to transition out of your training program. You want to start to use that time to prepare, you know, to do some self-introspection about what it is that you really want out of your career and out of your first real position. There are so many different considerations that you need to start to think about, and I encourage everybody to take it that far back and start to consider things like the practice type, practice settings, geography, where do you want to live, you know, if you have a family, what are your family considerations? Are you interested in large academic medical centers like Cleveland Clinic? Are you interested in private practice? You know, you have to start to kind of build the concept around what it is that you really think you want to do once you transition out of Cleveland Clinic, and start to put some framework around that. And that'll help you start to define the CV production, the cover letters, the building your networks. Who do you need to start to network with? What are your recruitment options? Do you want to engage with an outside recruitment vendor? I'm sure many of you are being contacted by recruiters all the time. I'll address that a little bit later on working with recruiters and what that means and what that's like. So you want to start to do that as far back as 18 months. And when you do that, remember, there are so many resources available to you at Cleveland Clinic through our Office of Physician Recruitment to support you, guide you, counsel you through many of these processes that many of you haven't had a chance to talk about or even think about yet. You know, some of the things that we do, the CV and cover letter preparation, we can guide you through that. We work with you on individual interview preparation. questions to ask, how to prepare for an interview, things that you might need to do to get ready to maximize the impact of your interview process, how to move forward beyond the interview stage. We perform group counseling sessions, presentation sessions to your residency and fellowship programs. You should reach out to your current program director to schedule us to come in and do one of these presentations, and where we'll cover a lot of these elements in much more in depth, and also can sit on the side one-on-one with individuals. One of the things that you might want to take note of also is we have every Tuesday, our office, every Tuesday from 9 to 4:30 in the House Staff Resource Center in the H building, which used to be the old Board of Governors area. One of our professional recruiters is there every Tuesday from, like I said, from 9 till 4:30 in the afternoon. No appointment necessary. You can engage them in any of these topics or concepts that we're going to discuss today to help guide you through any of these processes. So start 18 months back. Take a look at where you are, what you're doing, conceptualize the type of environment, the geography, the things that are important to you about that first real job, and start to build that framework around it. As you start to move through your timeline and get closer and closer, and 12 months out, 14 months, 12 months, 10 months out, you're going to be starting to go through the interview process. You want to start to narrow your focus. You want to start to compare opportunities and what's good, what's bad, the pros and cons of each based on what you already know. If many of you are going to get legal contracts for employment, unlike what we do here at the Cleveland Clinic, many places will provide you with a formal binding contract. You want to get those, take a look at those, start to compare the terms and terminology and what one offers versus another. Speaking of the contracts, a colleague of mine, Mike Machete, who's the executive director of the OPSA here, Professional Staff Affairs, in a separate segment to this one is going to discuss employment options and the different styles and types of employment. He'll also get into contract language and the terms and features of individual employment contracts to help guide you through that. But even beyond that, even beyond what Mike is going to share with you in this video segment, my office will sit down. Once you get real contracts, real actual employment terms, we will sit down with you one-on-one and walk through a contract with you page by page to identify points of clarification that might need to be made. I'll qualify that right now and say that we're not offering legal advice, and we would still encourage you to get legal advice on the contracts, but we're very good at raising red flags and raising questions about individual terms and points within those contracts so that you can go back to the employer and ask professional and reasonable questions about that. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that. On that timeline, as you start to move closer and closer, 6 months in, you're going to be making decisions, and you're going to have to start the credentialing and licensing process with the new employer. You're going to be talking about relocation. If you have any visa concerns or visa issues, you're going to be addressing those during that period of time, all the way up until identifying a start date. So my point in all of that, and we have these timelines laid out in documents that you can follow about what we recommend you start to do. But I wanted to really spend a little bit of time on that because we find over and over and over again that people wait too long. Look, you're at Cleveland Clinic, you're training at Cleveland Clinic. We know we keep you very busy here, and you don't have time to do a lot of these things. But what we really want to do is to get you to start to think about the timing of your job search, because we've seen too many people get too close to the end, and then the angst and the stress really ramps up at a time when you're already stressed about what you're doing here at the clinic. So start early, ask us if you have questions, get engaged with us to help counsel through the process. But I can't stress enough the timing issue of what it is that you want to do. Let me talk a little bit about the CV itself. We said about 18 months out, way early on, start to craft your CV. The CV is the presentation of you as a clinician, as a potential employee. It's not to be taken lightly. My office, we receive literally thousands and thousands of CVs every year. We know what's a good CV, what's not a good CV, and we can tell you that a CV speaks loudly about you as a potential employee. if you don't take care of the CV, if it's not professionally done, you know, we look into that and we say, why, you know, do they not care? Do they not have attention to detail? Are they not professional enough? So we want you to take a you know, a good hard look at your CV, and again, we will advise if necessary and if you're interested. But a well-written CV should be very clean, clear, concise, up to date. Don't give anybody a CV that has old information on it. If there are any gaps in any service, any gaps in any education or training that are in there, you need to be able to explain those away. And for goodness sakes, they have to be error-free. In today's era of spell check and computerization, there's absolutely no excuse for any kind of grammatical or spelling or punctuation errors. Get 3 other people to read it for you. It sounds very simple, but you'd be surprised at how many people let CVs go without taking care of that one simple fact. What you should not do on a CV, and again, this is from experience, we see these. Do not put extremely personal information on the CV. Do not put social security numbers. Do not have photographs. Do not put your children's information on the CV. You want it to be clean, clear. It's a fact-based document about you and your journey to where you are getting through training. So it's really important to take care of that. And again, I keep stressing, we've done so many, we've seen so many, we will sit down with you, you prepare a CV, you send it to us, we'll critique it, we'll review it, we'll red pen it, and we'll send it back to you with thoughts and ideas that we have about what makes an impactful CV. So take the time, do that early, get it started so that you can adjust it as you get closer and closer to the actual application time. Along with the CV is the important cover letter. You're going to send a cover letter every time you send a CV to a potential new employer. How do you address that? What is it that you should take into account? A cover letter should no more than 1 page. You don't want to just say all the things that your CV says in the cover letter. It's just completely redundant. So you want the CV to be a fact-based document that talks about you and your training. You want the cover letter to show more about your personality and who you are relative to the position that you're applying for. So you want to talk about in the cover letter why this position is right for you, why you're right for that position. You want to explain a little about you, your passions, you know, your goals in life, and you want to make it clean and clear about you and why this opportunity is the right opportunity. So like I said, it's an opportunity for you to let you shine through and not just be a fact-based document. And like I said before, do not just make it, don't fill it up with facts that can be read in the CV because it's completely redundant. And like I said, as everything that I talk about here today will be available to you both online that you can access and in person with members of my team. So let's talk for a minute or two about the actual interview itself. Absolutely critical to you and the future and the job, getting the job that you actually want. You know, I'm going to tell you a few things, and they're going to sound incredibly simplistic, and please don't be offended by what I will tell you, because experience, again, shows that people, more often than you can possibly imagine, do not adhere to some of these incredibly basic principles. Be on time. This sounds incredibly simple, but listen, on time doesn't mean on time. On time means 15 minutes early. It actually might mean 30 minutes early, sitting out in the parking lot reviewing your notes about the employer that you're going to go see. That's the way to prepare to maximize the interview. You know, don't take it lightly. Don't ever show up late. You know, get there an hour ahead of time, whatever it is you need to do. When you're in the interview, I know you're still a clinician, you're still a physician. Turn off the mobile phone, turn off the pager. You can be without contact for 30 minutes to 60 minutes in an interview. And if you can't resist the temptation to check the mobile, leave it in the car. Get rid of the temptation. Again, I'm telling you simplistic things. You'd be amazed at how many people don't do these. This is the first step in what might be your career in medicine. So take it that seriously. Dress, act, behave professionally and like you want the job. Again, it sounds obvious, but think about it before you go in about how do you want to project? How do you want to present yourself? Take advantage of the opportunity to show yourself in the best light. And when you're there, you know, you want to act with incredible positivity and like this job is the job that you really want. And part of that acting professionally and coming across the right way in an interview is to prepare for the interview. You want to research the institution, you want to research the facility, you want to research, if it's a good institution or organization, likely you will have received an itinerary ahead of time with who you will be interviewing with. There will likely be multiple people. Research them, everything's available online today. Go out there and do it and prepare it, have notes so that you can speak personally and professionally about the opportunity and with the people. Speak with the people, not just to the people that you're going to be interviewing with. It's about a personality and a fit. I can give you a perfect example. We received over now about 15,000 applications for 175 jobs in Cleveland Clinic, Abu Dhabi. 175 physicians that we had to hire for opening day, 15,000 applicants. Everybody that went through the process that we considered for these positions interviewed in Cleveland and they interviewed in Abu Dhabi. Between the two, they interviewed with probably 25 or 30 people. The reason for that, and this is what you're going to find, and it's increasingly important today, is that it's pretty easy for us that in the field and for the potential hiring leaders that you're going to be meeting with to vet you and understand your clinical background. You know, they're going to see your CV, they're going to read your letters of recommendation, they're going to know you trained at Cleveland Clinic, they're probably going to know the people that trained you. It's pretty easy for them to get to the bottom of your clinical ability. Today, what's increasingly important, just like in Abu Dhabi, what we cared more about, because we could get to the heart of the clinical skills very quickly. What was really important was culture and fit. It was, are you going to fit with the culture that we're trying to create or the culture that we already have? It's going to be hugely important for you to be able to get across to them why you're the right person, not just the right doctor for this opportunity. And you know, and with absolute transparency in Abu Dhabi, we rejected out of hand absolute world-renowned, best-in-class clinicians because we could tell that they were not the right fit for the culture that we were trying to create. So don't underestimate those factors. If you're a phenomenal clinician, you need to prepare yourself personally as well. It's not always enough because look at the caliber of the competition that you're facing. So these interviews are those opportunities for you to share you and why you make sense for that culture and you fit into that environment. Hugely important today. And be yourself. When you're in this environment, you know, you want to let you shine through because that's what they're making the decisions. You know, use a sales analogy. You know, if all things being equal and two products being reasonably close to equal, consumers will buy from someone they like. And that's what carries the day, all other things being equal. And look around, there are other clinicians that are strong. And you're going to have competition from a clinical perspective, so they're going to hire somebody that's going to fit. And then when you're done with the interview, follow up. And follow up right away. And follow up with, again, why you're right for the job. Again, put some personality into it. Don't forget to you know, to follow up with the, you know, after the interview itself. All of these pieces of information, again, we can share with you and walk you through prior to you going on any of your interviews. We will sit down in one-on-one counseling sessions if that's what you'd like. Let me take a minute and talk about what I'm sure all of you or most of you are being bombarded with, and that is the third party, the vendors, the recruiters out there whose business today is booming. There are opportunities, there are needs everywhere. Like I mentioned earlier, the market trends, physicians are retiring, physicians are moving to part-time, we need more FTEs. They're harder to find in many locations, and it's a boom market for the recruiters. So I'm sure they're calling you and they're letting you know who they are and what they do. It's important to understand the differences between the types of recruiters out there. Myself, my team, we're what are called in-house recruiters. We work exclusively for Cleveland Clinic. Anywhere Cleveland Clinic has an opening or an opportunity, it's our responsibility to work on that and represent that. And there are other organizations out there that have in-house recruiters. But the in-house recruiters elsewhere, like we don't rely on outside vendors, but many other organizations, academic medical centers, private groups, private practices will rely heavily on outside vendors. There are two main types of recruitment vendors that will be contacting you. There's a contingency recruiter and a retained search recruiter. The contingency is the far more common. That is the type of an organization that they don't get paid unless they make a placement. They are hired by the organization that has a need. They reach out and try to find you, and they try to make a match, and if they make a match, they get paid, and only if they make a match. A retained search firm is an organization that is paid up front to go out and do a search on behalf of an organization, and they still get paid whether they complete the search or not. The majority of the people that are contacting you are contingency-based recruiters because that's the vast majority in the marketplace. And there's nothing wrong with working with an agency. You know, many times they get bad names. I used to own 2 different recruitment agencies in a prior life. It's a good living, it's a good business, and they the good ones perform an incredibly valuable service, and they're not to be discounted. You should look at them if that's the route you decide to go, and if you don't have other options. What I would tell you is probably 20% are the high performers, meaning they are above board, highly ethical, work hard on your behalf, do things the right way. And there are probably 20% who are incredibly and completely unethical, and you need to watch out for them. Then there's the middle of the pack who are good, but they're okay. The question is, how do you find the top 20%? Because those are the ones you want to work with. And it's not an exact science. I wish I had a magic formula for you, but word of mouth is incredibly important. Talk to friends, talk to colleagues, people who might have used them, talk to your attendings, talk to the leadership. Other people have had experience with recruitment firms. Word of mouth, how they perform, how they work, is the best barometer for what you are going to do with them. What I would do is I would try to vet a handful of agencies if you're going to use them and narrow it down to 1 or 2. Do not work with 4 or 5 or 6 or more. You want to build a relationship. If they're not willing to build a relationship with you, then it's not an organization that you really want to work with. But it's almost like buyer beware. But what I will tell you too is never, never, ever pay money to a firm. If any firm ever asks you for money to represent them in a search, absolutely do not do it, because ethical firms will not take money from you to make placements or find placements. So let me end with a few key takeaways. Remember the timing. The timing is absolutely critical. You need to start sooner than you probably think you need to, or sooner than you probably really want to. But I would tell you that at the very least, it might be worth a quick conversation with a member of my team to just kind of get you on a starting path. And then you can decide how quickly or how much you want to engage and move forward with that. You're not alone here as a trainee at Cleveland Clinic. My entire team of 20 professional recruiters is engaged in the Resident and Fellow Career Transitions program. We are available at all times. There's going to be a tremendous amount of information that will show at the end of this video segment that will guide you to how to access us. It will guide you to a SharePoint site that you have access to, in which there's all this types of information. There are templates, there are guidebooks, there are documentation, there's information. There's a whole host of information on these sites that will be shared with you at the end, and I would encourage you all to take advantage of that. Thank you.